Right, we fitted some wheel spacers to our standard Ford Ranger with the steel wheels, and we fitted them, we'll go and have a look, the sun's behind it, it's not great. We fitted them on this side here, the right hand side of the car, left hand side as you're looking at, and this is stock. So we haven't changed the wheels, we've just changed the wheel spacers, or added some wheel spacers. So if you look down this side of the car now, you can see that the wheels pretty much fill the arches there. If you look down it, and I'll look from the back as well. Okay, so in the UK by law you're not supposed to have your tyre outside your bodywork, but that with the standard steels on seems to be fine, and that's got 30mm spacers, right, Ian? 35s. So that's the most we could find. You see there we're pretty much inside. So if you see there, it has a better stance. The car stands quite nice. It's got the retro look with the old steels on. We're going to get some alloys on, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But just on the standard car, that's with wheel spacers, and that is without. Okay, so the wheels sit a lot more inside the arches, especially at the front there. So I'll just show you that from the front again. I think the sun's gone in, so I'll probably see a little better. So that's the side without the wheel arch, without the wheel spacers, and that's the side with the wheel spacers. Right, so we'll have a look. Right, so we've got the wheel spacers in here, and we'll bring it in the workshop, and we'll show you how to fit the wheel spacers. So this is the kit. You get four wheel spacers in the kit. We'll show you how these fit. So basically they bolt up to your existing wheel bolts, and then you get some new wheel bolts to fit your new wheels too. They're made from aluminium. This spigot, this hub ring in the inside, will explain why that's important, because that's exactly the same diameter to fit over the protruding bit on the hub, and that's quite important.
And it also replicates that on the outside as well.
So yeah,
the right
so the wheel
spigot, so that doesn't change the wheel spacers.
So that can take a lot of force. There's a lot of debate about that, and I'm actually not a wheel expert, but we'll go through that. There's one other little lesson I wanted to explain, so we'll go through that a bit more as we're fitting them on the car. So what have you've written down here, Ian?
Yeah, 35mm,
35mm, which is purely the thickness of this disc here across here. And then it's got the 6x139.7 is saying it's got 6 studs, and if you draw a circle through the middle of each of those studs, the diameter of that circle would be 139.7 millimeters, and the center bore, that is on this back, that is this diameter across here, right, Ian?
Yep.
Yeah, so that is the diameter across here, which is also pretty much the same as the diameter,
which is identical on that
across that one. Right.
It should be, so that's standard 6x139.7 and 93.1 should be standard for Mazdas and Fords from this age and backwards.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay, so there's a lot of those. So, but we'll tell you which car. So we're fitting it on the T6, which is that one there. You can see we've changed the grille, but if yours looks like that, or the T7 should be the same as well.
T7 should be the same. So it seems like it's pretty much any Ranger, to be honest.
Right, let me just do this, Ian. Let me do this little bit of sort of lesson stuff. So one thing you do need to watch. This is a wheel, right, for the sake of my lesson today. And normally when you turn your wheel, your wheel actually pivots. This central axis is actually sloping, but to make it simple, so when you turn the wheel on the ground, it pivots about the center of the tyre there. Look, it doesn't scrape. Now what you've got to be careful of, depending how you do your wheel spacers and other factors, so if you space that out now, so the wheel is sitting further out, what happens when you turn is the wheel has to roll. So it's not pivoting about the center, it has to roll, which can cause issues with steering and suspension. Also, if you hit a stone as you're driving along, this way it can push it back and change your steering, whereas if you've got it over the center, when you hit a stone, it pushes straight back, it doesn't twist the steering. So you do have to be very careful with wheel spacers, but if you've got wider wheels with a bigger offset, it can actually help you, wheel spacers. So there's all sorts of things you need to be a little bit careful of, There we go. Right, let's get the truck in the workshop. Let's take the wheels off and have a go at fitting a set. Right, obviously you've got to take your wheel off. So we've loosened them, we've jacked the car up. Just spin these off. Look at me sitting down. I'm getting old.
So this is essentially no harder than changing a wheel.
Let me turn my phone off. Right. Oh gosh. There we go. He was tight. Right. So there we go. So that's the wheel. So one thing to note is, now does this wheel actually sit on the hub ring? Yes, it does.
Yeah,
doesn't
it should do.
So it hasn't got a continuous hub ring. It's got these 4 bits that stick out here, and the inside of the wheel sticks if we push the little centre cap out, or not. It sits on this rim here, and the idea is when your wheel goes over a big bump and it goes up like that, not all the force is taken on the wheel studs or wheel bolts.
Well, there's an argument about it, isn't it? A lot of
Yeah.
people say that it's just for assembly, so that the centre ball holds the wheel in place while you do the nuts up.
But I can understand that
technically
when
it's
you add
the-
wheel bolts, but when you've got the studs, that locates
Yeah,
it.
it
on
should hold
anyway.
its. Yeah, it should locate itself. It's there to help centre it. There to because it should be the friction between the wheel and the.
Yeah, the hub and the wheel face.
Yeah.
But you haven't got such a big area here, especially on these steels. You haven't got a massive
Yeah,
area.
you can see all of this
Yeah.
is dimpled out anyway, so you've only got a very small patch
So I
that's actually
think this
contacting.
hub ring is important. I think it does take some of the force when you get a big jump, and that's why you'll see on our wheel spacers, they fit over there and do that.
There you go.
Right. Okay.
So they give you shallow nuts provided. These aren't for going on these studs, they're just there for packaging so that they're not loose. So the fact these nuts are on these studs is just for packaging.
So you need to whip all these out because these don't use these for holding your wheels on. No.
These are for holding your wheel, not the
The
spacers.
spacers on, yeah. Now, because one thing you got to make sure is when you put wheel nuts on, that the taper in the wheel nut is the same as the taper on the wheel. So these
have got the
have
right,
got the right taper
taper.
to fit in there and hold that on securely.
And they're also shorter than a standard one, so they don't poke out, so that your wheel bolts flat against that face and not against the nuts.
So these slip over. Now we're not gonna put any grease or anything. I mean, you could put some grease behind it. Wouldn't do
Some
any
do
harm.
copper slit, some say again
You
it's a
have
bit
got
of a
aluminium. You have got aluminium against steel, which can cause some corrosion.
yeah. It's a bit complicated. Some people say do, some people say you should never. I'd stick to what your usual practice is, to be honest. If you personally,
Stick to what your grandfather told you. Careful, not crossfade them.
check with your local tyre shop if you're worried.
Right, there we go. Right, and we're going to need a fairly skinny socket to get on there. Did you fit the other side in? Did it go with
Just a standard. They're,
for the socket.
so they're 19, which is the same size as our standard wheel nuts. So we only need the one socket for the spacers and the wheels, which is quite nice. You don't have to go find another one halfway through.
They're a bit liable to cross thread, and make sure you spin them on a.
Yeah, the fact they're in those little sockets in those.
Make sure they spin on
little
a few
wells.
turns before you go putting any force on them. So see they're all free to turn.
You should be able to just use a buzz gun and just. So this is just to run them down the threads.
And then I'm going to do the
And
one
lift them up.
opposite. I'm not going super tight yet. Right, that's that.
And you'll need the socket still.
Right, so what torque of the...
These are 100 foot-pound or 135 newton meters. If you're unsure, you can check in your owner's manual for your truck.
So you got that all set, yeah?
Yeah, so that should be set.
Oh, right, we're going to need to... can I put a... Is it criminal to put a little screwdriver in
No,
there?
it should be fine.
I'm not going to get struck off for any heinous act.
So that's just to stop your disc turning.
I'll talk them all up a little bit. You don't want to go yet, but let me talk them all up a little bit.
You don't want to do the first one full torque just yet. we go.
There you go, you can hear the click. So yeah, you should make sure you're torquing these up fully.
Now, do we recommend after driving it for a week here, you also check again?
Yeah.
That's it. There we go. Right. So that's that.
Then it's just a case of putting your wheel back on, as you would normally.
Yeah, and so notice you've got this, so we've got the same diameter sort of lip here that's going to help locate the wheel.
Yeah, so the one thing I needed to do was bend these tabs in for our centre caps, depending on what wheels you've got. But I literally just used a pair of pliers and just folded them in, because actually where we had those 4 points, the
You had
centre
the
cap
gaps,
sits between
yeah.
them in the gaps, but we don't have that with the wheel spacers. But that was solved just by flexing these in with a set of pliers, just bending the tabs in, and then it would all just bolt back on as per this side with the centre cap and everything, and that is sitting wider now.
Wheel space is done. Good luck with that. Sitting down for after.